It's intermission time. It's great to get out to the movies.
I'm Megan Braun. I host this podcast called Intermission, produced by The Synagogue. And today we have a very cool guest, Boots Riley. Do you want to intro yourself to the listener of who you are and the film we'll be talking about today?
Yeah. Okay, I'm Boots Riley, the writer-director of I Love Boosters.
And before we get started, there was like a couple things I wanted to tell you. First off, I'm from the Bay.
Okay.
And I feel like that's important to tell you. I'm from San Jose.
Okay.
But I lived in San Francisco for a long time before. Now I'm in LA just this past 3 years. But like, I always, first and foremost, the Bay is my heart. Yeah,
San Jose was like where girls live that you meet at a party and then you never see them because you are.
Yeah, I know. I the other week I met these girls just down the street from my place, and I was telling them I'm from the Bay, and I said San Jose, and they're like, "Oh," and I'm like, "No, it's the Bay, I swear."
Yeah.
And another thing I wanted to tell you is I interviewed a director recently. Her name's Amy Wang, and her film is called Slanted. I don't know if you've heard of it, but
I've heard of it. Yeah.
It's about this teenage Asian American girl who goes through this procedure to be white, and it's like a very funny. Yeah, but I just wanted to tell you that I was asking her about inspiration for her film, and you were one of the main. Sorry to bother you was one of the main inspirations for that film.
Cool.
Yeah, and my last thing I want to say before we get into this is our first episode ever we had on the podcast was with Ted Hope, and he talked about you a bit, seeing you in the city, and it was really sweet. He really cares about you.
He was the first person to tell me that he wanted to make my movie. I had never heard someone before that. It was like friends not reading my script and not believing it was serious, and then so that really inspired me, even though we didn't end up working together. But it was like, oh, there's a real producer.
He's a cool guy, and the way he spoke about you, I could just tell that he really cared, which was sweet.
Yeah, that's cool.
But with all that being said, I'm excited to chat about your movie. For the listeners of this podcast, could you just give a little description of your background? So I'm assuming everyone has seen Sorry to Bother You, because I have.
Yeah.
And then obviously your start with music. So could you just tell me a bit about your origin story?
Okay. Because there's either the long way or the short way. I'm not so good at the short way. Let's see. Okay. From the age of 14 or 15, I joined a revolutionary party called Progressive Labor Party. It was a communist organization. I started working with farm workers in the Central California Valley, helping them to organize a union. And so I was working with also in that area, it was like people who had escaped the 1968 massacre of students in Mexico City, and they came to the U.S. to continue their revolution. And so they joined Progressive Labor Party eventually, and were doing this, but they were working in the fields, and we were supporting them. Through that, I heard about Teatro Campesino, which was kind of defunct by that time, but had been in the area maybe 15 years before, and they would assign us to okay, you run the flyers off for today, you figure out the caravan route, and you make a skit for the rally for when we're coming out of the fields that is funny in Spanish and talks about how pesticides cause cancer, right? And they would be bad, terrible plays, terrible skits, but people appreciated that it was happening, right? And my grandmother actually ran Oakland Ensemble Theater in the late 70s and early 80s. And so before that, theater was like the grown-up thing, like boring. It's going to be people sitting on a couch. There will probably be a slap somewhere. Like if you talk to actors of a certain age, or if you work with them, they are going to suggest a slap. Maybe somebody should slap me, something like that, because that's high drama, right? Mm-hmm. And but then I came away from those summer projects, came back with the idea that maybe we could use theater to make Revolution popular. All right, and I joined the Black Repertory Theater. By this time, my grandmother wasn't involved in theater anymore. But I joined Black Repertory Theater, and it was a storefront theater, maybe as a little bit bigger than this hotel room. And I was like, damn, we're going to need a lot of plays to get this revolution going. And then I saw Do the Right Thing. And even though the politics were different, I could see him using film for something. Mm. And I entered film school at SF State. That was at the same time as I decided to be a rapper. And so in film school, film costs a lot of money. Mm. The part in Sorry to Bother You was 40 on 2. It was because I made myself laugh actually doing that, trying to get to school. And so I didn't have money for the film that it costs to do it. Even though we'd have to only spend like $8 a week on film, that was a big thing. Mm-hmm. And in the midst of this, I got offered $50,000 to make a record. So I was like, I guess I'm not in school anymore. And because we had already put out this EP and kind of used a lot of the skills that I learned from organizing to just put the word out there, so I could make music. And I was like, okay, well, I'll write story raps and I'll make people see my films in their head, right? And so we got, but I also thought, well, also I can direct the videos, and that'll be a thing, and that'll lead me to being able to do movies. But the record label would always say, well, if you want to direct it, since you're unproven, the budget is way down here. Mm. But if you use some of our known people that we trust, the budget is way up here. And so, of course, I wanted the bigger budget. And but there was a good trade-off there because I worked with people that knew what they were doing. And I would write treatments, storyboard, real crude stuff. And then because often they were coming from out of town, I would be doing the location scouting, picking places or whatever. Not all of the places, because they'd have great ideas sometimes too. And then, but the main thing was also just camping out in the editing room with them. And this is the old days where you're lucky if you could get Avid. That was oh, they're doing it on Avid. They've got, and it was this big machine that looked like it looked like a arcade game or something. But, some of those directors were like Kevin Bray, who went on to do All About the Benjamins, and who was Basquiat's friend, right? Hmm. And it was demystified for me. And I did co-direct one, which was called Me and Jesus the Pimp in a 79 Granada last night. But we got known for songs like that. That song is 8 minutes long. Another song that we got known for is Fat Cats and Bigger Fish. That one's 7 minutes long. And these are all story songs in which I'm describing things like a novel, right? And getting people to see these stories in their head. After my second album, though, because originally with the music, I thought, I'm going to just do 2 albums. We're going to sell double platinum. I will use that money to buy revolutionary headquarters in different places around the world, and then all that's over with, right? And it did not go close to that. We had this song called Fat Cats and Bigger Fish got on the radio in LA and it looked like it was about to pop, and the whole industry was like, look at what they're doing in LA and Chicago with this. This is usually something you put money into, and you can get a platinum album with that sort of a response. And it didn't happen, and it got blocked, and I just felt powerless. I felt like, damn, okay, I can't break it past this thing, so what am I doing? I'm wasting my life being an artist. So at 24, I had a midlife crisis where I quit.
So much happened before 24.
Yeah. I was like, okay, I've been spending my life being an artist. And the party I had been in, I wasn't in that party anymore, but really looked down on artists as being like just hippies who are trying to avoid doing the actual work that needs to be done. There's truth to that, but but I was like, okay. And a lot of my heroes had done way more when they were like 19. So I was like, damn, I'm wasting my life. And so I quit. Me and friends formed an organization called the Young Comrades. And just as a side note, in order to survive, I knew I was good at telemarketing. And I knew that I could just like work. I would work like maybe one time every 2 weeks or once a week at most, and I could get enough money to live. And so I could be organizing the rest of the time because I didn't have kids yet, and rent was much cheaper. I was doing that, but while I was doing that and we were doing various campaigns, I got a better appreciation for where culture sits in people's decision-making processes, right? Where film and music sits in that, in shaping how they think the world works and what they think is possible and what they think other people think. Then I went back with a renewed vigor. After that organization imploded, I went back with a renewed vigor, did an album called Steal This Album, started thinking of myself as an artist. Because before that I thought, okay, I'm just doing this, I'm not an artist. And once I started thinking of myself as an artist, the songs became actually more effective because they became more personal. And so I did that stuff. I also did an album with Tom Morello called Street Sweepers. Our band was called Street Sweepers Social Club. But I think the thing with that was it's weird because I didn't really have anything to do with the music. I was just doing the lyrics. And so it felt creatively I didn't have satisfaction creatively. And also when you hear a Tom Morello riff, you think Zach is about to come in rapping.
Yeah.
And so I remember sitting in a hotel room. Actually, it was the Hollywood Roosevelt Hotel.
Oh, pretty.
And wondering why I had made the decision to do this, right? Was it just trying to get big because I also felt like people weren't listening to the lyrics. I felt something aesthetically about that music that made people not listen to the lyrics because rebellion was like ingrained in the aesthetic, so it could just be a general rebellion. And so much of my stuff has to do with the nuance of the lyrics. So I was like, let me just do something creative that I don't even know how the fuck I would do it, make it happen, and just have this thing. And so I sat down and downloaded Final Draft and started typing. And the thing about Final Draft is you start typing and it looks like a script. But what's funny is, sorry to bother you, I did refine, but that first scene was the same.
That's cool.
So I wrote that scene and it seemed like it was funny. And so I was like, I'm writing a script. And that was 2010. I thought, okay, I'll write this indie film, after I wrote that scene, I was like, okay, I'll write this indie film that we can do with like $50,000, and I'll get the label for that the coup was on, Epitaph. I'll get them to just give me the promotion budget and be like, the promotion budget is we have a movie, and therefore that'll drive things. But as I kept writing, shit just kept getting expensive. Like, I knew that. I was like, oh, God, there's no way for this. But it was like what I had to do to, like, honor the way that I normally do things, which had to do with heightening contradictions and stuff that would seem absurdist, like I think often lyrics work with when it's one thing about certain kind of lyrics are the irony and the connections that you're drawing. And, once I realized that's what I do normally, like, and how do I keep doing what I know that I like to do and do. So that's what influenced the things that are thought of as absurdist in the film, just made it more complicated. Because the original idea was, okay, it's a guy that works telemarketing and kind of betrays his friends who are organizing a union, and they do the rap scene part, and he realizes how he's being seen, and that makes him do an about face and decide to do something, I didn't know what, something only he could do that could help that strike. And once he figures it out, he rides his bike fast across the city and joins that strike. And, it just kept getting crazier and crazier, which made me more and more excited, right? Mm-hmm. I was like, how do I get some people to know about it? And so I had my manager at the time. I was like, look, we don't know anybody in Hollywood, but what I do know is everybody's assistant comes to my shows. So so let's just cold call people and send out the script to, like 100 people or whatever, and then see what pops up. I thought that was happening. Turns out later in court, I found out it wasn't happening. My manager had been told by someone that the script was shit, and so don't do this. And
that's so crazy.
That wasn't happening. But one thing I did do, somebody was online and somebody said, hey, Patton Oswalt is quoting Coup lyrics on Twitter. So I messaged him. It's like, hey, I have this script. Would you read it? He was like, hell yeah. And I sent it to him, and he liked it. He was like, yeah, use my name for whatever. And I had, like, earlier in, like, maybe 2002, me and David Cross did a concert at 4th Avenue in Minneapolis. What is it called? The Prince place. I forget the name of that club they do in Purple Rain. We had done a concert that was a fundraiser to buy an ambulance for Palestine. And so I had his phone number from that. However, before I had decided I was going to write Sorry to Bother You, I had a friend who was doing a different movie, and I owed him a lot of favors. And he was like, can you get my script to David Cross? And so this was probably around 2006 or something. And so without reading it, I sent him this script. Whatever it was terrible.
No.
The only message I got back from David Cross at the time was, what the fuck is this? I don't even know how to read this. And it was just, it was just bad. And for me, it was like, okay, cool, whatever. That's a movie. I'm not doing that, right? So then when I did decide to try to hit him up for this, I was like, fuck, he's probably just not going to even, respond. And so he responded. He was like, yeah, send it to the house, because I don't read PDFs or whatever. And I sent it, and he told me later that he planned on avoiding it, right? And but his assistant was house sitting when the script came, and was like, oh shit, and read it and was like, you got to read this. And then he was like, wow, this is actually good, and was like, yeah, use my name. So I had David Cross and Patton Oswalt on board. I wasn't able to get money with those names, and so I kept working it while I was touring, trying to figure out. And then I had to I made an album to be the soundtrack to it in 2012. I needed money, so I needed to put out an album. I needed to tour, so I put that out, touring, all that kind of stuff. Nothing was really growing from it, and pretty soon it was 2014. And I ran into Dave Eggers on the street. And by then I had said, fuck it. I'm not getting any traction. What I should do is put this out online. And people will at least I'll get some buzz like, whoa, Boots Riley actually wrote a script. That's so cool. I thought maybe 20 years from now, people will be like, someone should make this movie that was written that people, but I wanted it to, still wanted it to be tight because I was looking at it as a release. And the good thing about doing the music is I knew like a fair amount of people would read it. Like it felt to me like the idea was getting people to read it. I ran into Dave Eggers on Valencia.
Did you already know each other?
No, Actually, J. Otto Seabolt, he was walking with a friend of mine, J. Otto Seabolt, who does my lettering on Sorry to Bother You and on I Love
It's good.
Victor. Yeah. And he's a children's book author. He wrote a book called Olive the Other Reindeer, and that became a cartoon and all this stuff. So I just saw J. Otto, and he was like, oh, this is Dave Eggers. I had just read What is the What? I would compliment him on that, and I was like, well, actually I have a script that I'm going to put out online. Could you read it and give me notes? Because I want it to be as tight as possible. And he read it and hit me up a few days later and said, don't put this out on the internet. Let me put it out on McSweeney's. So he put it out as a paperback book, but packaged with the McSweeney's Quarterly. So it went out to like 10 or 20,000 people. And because he was like, oh, everybody reads this, it'll be the cool thing or whatever. But what I realized was, okay, even if it's cool, like for people to trust me, I need them to think of me as a filmmaker, because a lot of people were like, well, you're a rapper, so of course you want to make a movie. You probably also want to have a clothing line and a restaurant and all of this stuff. People just not taking it seriously. So I needed the word filmmaker connected to me. So I tried to get into the SF film filmmakers in residence program, because then you're a filmmaker in residence. So I went to meet with them, and they seemed somewhat skeptical, right? Like with that same thing. But we're sitting at this cafe in North Beach, me and Michelle Turner Soleo, who was running the film house at the time. And we're sitting there, and she seems a little skeptical. And then this black SUV pulls up to turn the corner. We're on the corner. We're sitting at an outside cafe. And this black SUV pulls up and rolls down, and it's Dave Chappelle. And Dave Chappelle says, Boots Riley, what are you doing here? I was like, I live in Oakland. And he's like, I got a show tonight. Come through. And then he pulled off, and then Michelle was like, was that Dave Chappelle? And then I was like, yeah, he said he's going to be in the movie and everything, so it's all good. I was totally lying. But that made everything seem big, but as well as did it being with Dave Eggers saying this is one of the best scripts I've ever read, blah, blah, blah. So now is being taken seriously. Now people are clicking the PDF. Now I have filmmaker in residence in my name, you know. And I met producers there who had movies. Jonathan Duffy, who had a few movies at Sundance already. I had, before this, submitted the script to Sundance and to the labs, and it didn't make it. They don't tell you why. And so now I had a producer, and I think it has to do with, like, is this just something good, or is it something that's going to get made? Because it accused of, like, just being artsy and not really. Yeah, so Jonathan Duffy and George Rush I met through the film. Actually, George Rush, I heard that he got films made and he had a karaoke night. So I went to the karaoke night and I decided I'm just got to kill it so that I could talk to this dude. And so I whipped out It's Only Rock and Roll, which brought the house down. And then he was like, hey, George Rush. And I was like, I got a movie for you. And then he became a producer on it too. And so with those two, I resubmitted to the Sundance Labs. And well, actually, before I resubmitted to the Sundance Labs, I went to Sundance, to the festival, with a big bag of printed McSweeney scripts, because it had the cover that looked cool and all this stuff. And so I had a big bag, and I was on the bus handing them out, different things, and, met different folks, met up with Ann Lai, who was there, and then they invited me to submit to be in the labs, and then got in. Actually, I only got in by the skin of my teeth because, what's his name? He does, like, hybrid documentaries. Bart Layton was in the director's lab, and at the director's lab at the end they have another writer's lab, and he got a gig doing something, so he canceled his writer's lab part, and they were like, we got an opening, come on in. So if not for Bart Layton getting that gig, then I wouldn't have gotten in there. So once I got into the writer's lab, and I went through that, which was an amazing experience, and had a couple really good things that I can pull from that. 3 things. One was Kareem Ainuz, who was like, I love Cassius. I love what he does. I want to hang out with him. I want to protect him. I want to make sure he's happy. And he's like, and that's how I know your script is bullshit, because I hate everyone. And that led me to understand that I was having him, like, kind of just go through life like he was a pinball, and having to make these decisions instead of owning them and making the wrong decisions. And so that one note really just changed a lot, and went back and tweaked it. Then the other was Walter Mosley, who was like, he was like, hey, I don't know how you listen to anybody telling you about your shit. What? I don't get it. He's like, and so what we're going to, he was the last one. He was like, what we're going to do is we're just going to have a drink. And when we finish the drink, I'm going to ask you a question, and I don't want a response. I just want you to think about it. And his question was, how do you want people to feel while they're walking out of the theater? And that was really important, because I think at first I had it ending with it hitting him on the nose. Mm-hmm. And like, you just kind of get the idea of what could happen. But then I put on there, like, the actual rebellion. And then the third thing was Joan Tewksbury. She said to all of us, because she was like, look, you got to make your stuff more human. That your characters have to be as human as possible. And let me tell you one thing about humans. Humans like to fuck. And that was one big thing I took away from that. And and then the other thing was I saw everybody arguing about my script. I saw all the advisors like be split. Like some people loved it and thought it was one of the greatest things ever, and some people were like, "What the fuck is this?" And so what it showed me was these are masters of their craft, and there's nothing for them to look at that says this is how you do it. This is the right thing. So it allowed me to realize that nobody knows what the fuck they're doing.
Facts.
We're all figuring it out, and it gave me a lot more freedom. So yeah, and I used the lie that if you go to the labs, then of course you make your movie, you're going to get into the festival. Then it's a lie. It doesn't happen that way. It's probably a smaller. They kind of got a separation of church and state there, right? You could have problems, doing that. So, but I did say that to investors, and said that to cast, and we got all those folks in, and brings us to 2017 when we're making the movie. And then we took it to Sundance and sold it to Annapurna.
It's like such a cool story in hearing you lay it all out like this, because it's like it's a mix of hustle, but then a little bit of luck, a little bit of knowing the right people, and a little bullshit too, which I think is so important, to bullshit your way to where you want to be. Yeah,
definitely.
It's incredible. I also, I want to make sure, like time-wise, that we get into I Love Boosters too. So I'm going to kind of pivot us a little bit.
Okay,
but
cool.
I do want to make sure I ask you this question, because we ask every person that comes on the podcast this same question. And I'm curious about your answer. If you were to pick a movie that describes your life right now, whichever way you want to take that question, what movie comes to mind?
Exterminating Angel.
Okay, and what about this film?
In that movie, they're trying to leave a party, and just a new conversation keeps happening, and they keep thinking they're going to leave, and a new thing keeps happening, and they never leave the party. And that's kind of like how things are, in the sense that there's a never-ending list of things to do. Like there's never a there. It just is like you keep doing this stuff, you keep going, you make things, and there's never like I've gotten to this ledge, I've gotten to this step. It just kind of keeps rolling along.
Do you like that?
Sometimes, I think the key is to figuring out how to enjoy that, and the frustration is when you think there's this one thing that happens, because that one thing is something you've defined already, right? And so then you're not going to see that step, because it's never going to be exactly like that thing that you think, right? Yeah. When Sorry to Bother You sold at Sundance, I was crying. Like, I really was like, because I had spent that time, I guess what I didn't say in there, like, I stopped touring to do all that stuff. So in touring, I wasn't making a lot of money. I was collecting a lot of pennies all around. And so I stopped even collecting those pennies. I was squatting. We were on EBT and all of this stuff, and I also owed a lot of money to people that I couldn't just duck out on. And so I was like, fuck. We sold it for exactly the amount that we made it for. And so I was like, damn, I got to get a job, because I ruined my touring history, so the amount was going to be too low to tour on. And I didn't have any skills from being an artist for so long, right? So I can look back on it and be like, that was an amazing thing that happened. But because it wasn't happening the way that I thought that it was happening, I wasn't experiencing it like that at the time.
Yeah.
Right? And so you have to like hold on to these moments, which brings me to I Love Boosters. Like, you know, me and Keke were talking just the other day. Like, she just did this performance on Tamron Hall that was of this song that she wrote with my daughter, or that my daughter wrote, that she's performing. And it was just a really amazing moment, even though it's in the anxiety of what the fuck is about to happen with this movie when it comes out. Where is it going to be? But like us realizing we got to remember this moment, right? And that it's in the midst of this thing that we're really proud of, but you have these sort of measurements of, you know, there's some practical measurements. We spent a certain amount of money. It needs to make a certain amount of money for people to feel like it's worth it to do these kinds of things again, right? There are some practical things there, you know, like you can easily overlook the good shit that's happening. And
I mean, from myself, I watched the movie and I had the best time watching this movie. So I think just like little nuggets like that, the good feedback you get and the experience that people will have watching it is going to make it that much more fulfilling.
Yeah, definitely. No, yeah. So, because for instance, in that movie, there are people that are fine not leaving; they're having a good time. Then there's other people trying to leave, and it's a pretty crazy film.
The analogy, or just the premise of that movie you gave. What can you say it again? Actually, what was the title?
Exterminating Angel by Luis Buñuel.
Okay, yeah. It sounds like my Chilean side of the family when I'm trying to leave a party and like you're saying bye for like 2 hours.
Yeah. That's the premise of the film.
Yeah.
One of my other favorite films that's along that line is called La Moustache. And it's a thriller that really works. It's one of the best thrillers out there. But the whole premise is a man shaves his mustache and nobody notices.
That's so funny. That title makes me think of, honestly, earlier when you were saying your song titles and your album titles, I'm like, these are clever fucking titles.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's part of the writing is making the titles, you know. Yeah.
Well, I Love Boosters, wasn't it a song named by The Coup previously?
Yeah, 20 years ago, on the album Pick a Bigger Weapon, I made a song called I Love Boosters, and that was, you know, a product of many years of being broke and trying to stay fly and having boosters around, and just seeing the connection that they had with the community and the heroes that they were, but in the midst of being villainized.
Like the way that you talk and treat boosting in this movie, it does feel like it's not a petty crime. It's more like resistance and redistribution and survival. It's like a completely different spin on the broader perspective of like what that is.
Well, I do think it's survival. I don't think it's like radical or resistance. I think it's part of capitalism, right? It's just, capitalism necessitates unemployment and therefore poverty, and necessitates low wages. So therefore, you know, people have to have illegal businesses in order to survive. And that's just kind of part of how it happened. They're not like, they are still distributing the goods that were made with things and people's time. So I don't think the movie tries to do that, but it does put them in a light of the need that the community has for it.
Totally.
And it also doesn't try to make it more immoral than the rest of the boosting that's happening through the film.
And then I also just wanted to touch on a few things like visually with this movie. So Christopher Glass was the production designer that you worked with. and the movie has a ton of like monocolored stores and the tilted rooms, very like surrealist. And I know that you yourself, you have like such a strong vision that you're going for. So did a lot of that like visual language and mood exist prior to even being on set working with these people?
Because in order to sell a movie, all those ideas are ones that I have to have people reading. Like I can't be like, here's a thing and just trust me, it's going to be amazing, right? It's I'm writing those things. As I'm writing it, I'm thinking like, okay, fuck, this takes place in department stores. I hate being in department stores. Like, how do I? But the folks that are doing this, especially if she's a designer, and this is her idol, she loves this. Mm-hmm. So how do I make it us feel how she feels about it, right? And so that's where I came up with the monochrome set. So when I send out my scripts, I have score or score references, and I have visual references. And so I had a lot of monochromatic installations, monochromatic installation art, things like that. Yeah, all of those things are part of me getting people excited to read, to keep reading and excited to see the thing in person. But Christopher Glass brought so much to it. But like it's part of how I got him to be on board is what was on the script. Yeah.
I wanted to shout, like you were talking about, obviously the score of the movie and then the costume, everything, like Shirley Kurata is your costume designer.
Shirley Kurata, I didn't have to do much because I knew what her style was. I knew what her process was, which is sourcing a lot of the stuff and only like building what we need. Because if this was something where somebody was like, this is going to be my fashion line, I'm going to design and build everything, this would have been $100 million movie. But, she is, so I love her style. So I probably said no to two things, that one or two. And everything else was just a matter of, it was just like, yes, yes, yes. Maybe let's use that in this instead of there, that sort of a thing. And again, like Christopher Glass, his mock-ups that he would make, when we set foot on those sets, they were exactly like the mock-ups.
So sick.
And Natasha Breyer, not only did she have, I'm a Virgo, I couldn't get Panavision lenses. We really wanted them, and they're just like, oh no, these other people are using them. But they love Natasha so much that they invented lenses for us for the thing.
Wow.
And they, using pieces of old glass, making these new things for us. Also made a separate lens that was for the Lakeith shots. And then
so good.
And then she also has an invention that she doesn't like me talking much about, but it's something that kind of creates a wash over. It's another piece of glass she puts in front. And it kind of creates a wash of color that she can kind of DJ and change as
sick.
Goes. So yeah.
I just wanted to thank you for coming on and chatting with me, and
okay.
I had a great time talking. I hope everyone listening goes and checks out I Love Boosters.
Check out I Love Boosters. It's coming today. If you do it, it still counts as the weekend. So, all right. Okay.
All right.
Peace.
Thank you.
Bye.
Good evening.
If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to leave us 5 stars on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts. To stay in touch, follow our Instagram page at It's Intermission Time and share with your friends. As always, Intermission is produced by Jazeel Chu and Olivia Dean, and of course, hosted by yours truly, Megan Braun. This episode is brought to you by The Synagogue.